Of fun. It was great. There was some marvelous jam sessions were held and just wonderful things going on. But ultimately, it didn't last because the musicians weren't composing for the poems. So what I try to do is compose things to his poetry. I read his poetry as he's reading his poetry. So what I make are small compositions that are improvisations, but I know I'm going to release, I'm going to stop, I'm going to break back into the rhythm, I'm going to accent what he is saying. The music is an underpinning to the poetry. So that's what I try to do, and I think that's the future, the new direction of poetry and music, treating the poet as a lead singer and playing behind the lead singer.
Extreme Unction for James Douglas Morrison. That strange funeral, Jimbo. Faces crumble like flame-cold Chinese lamps. Skins peel as the cemetery earth is turning away, Jimbo. We remember the lizard with dreams of lost grasshoppers in his sleep. As in your strange sleep now, Jimbo. No funeral march, no media circus wagon procession, no grieving mistresses, no wife, no wake, no wail, no black lace crucifixes in an open tomb, no acid-spitting tribute, no homage of liquor and blood. No goopy gossip column for teenage America. All this will come later.
The poet has a sense of rhythm. Poetry is all rhythmic. It's the rhythm of the words, and of course, what is music but chord changes on top of that rhythm. So a poet puts verbal meaning on top of rhythm, and musicians, instrumentalists, put melody and chord changes on top of rhythm. And that's why I can play with poets, because we're all doing the same rhythm thing.
One month before you bailed out, Alverno parchment wings transported your poem, which will continue to burn beside exploitation fires, fanned by fans who will pretend they knew you. Desperate parasites feeding off your poor dead bones, the vampires of journalism turning your blood into a money hustle. Jesus, it was a strange funeral, Jimbo. We were all dressed in white raiment, as profound as snow. Snow that wanted to fall like pale cicadas in Paris.
I love it. Wow.
Good for me.
That's funny.
I love that. Wow, that is really cool. Hen House Studios.com. So cool.
And that information is going up right now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is us. We're here, and we are also.
Things to his poetry.
We are also here. I don't watch that because it's out of time.
Oh,
This
is some of the
real time.
recording bleeding into the?
Well, this is the this and here
Oh,
are
yeah.
Facebook and
Wow.
what Facebook people are seeing. They're
Yeah.
slightly behind where we are,
Yeah.
so that's why I don't really watch it, because it's distracting. This is real time.
Well, no, this is nice. It's
Yeah.
sort of like radio without the sound booth.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Michael C. Ford, this is my guest today. I'm so glad he came over actually to do this instead of Zooming. He and I have been friends. 40
That would have
years
been a
or
challenge
something.
for me to get on electronic media.
Yeah.
I mean, that would have been a disaster. You know, it's just, yeah. I'm electronically retarded. I can't. I have trouble pushing a button on a doorbell. You know, I need instruction. Do I point? Why point? Where do I do?
You did it. You did mine today very well.
Oh, I did. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the Avon lady was outside and showed me how to do it. That's how that worked.
Yeah, we
ladies and
talked about
gentlemen.
Avon. I told Michael that I had been an Avon lady, and I finally stopped because too many people I'd ring the bell and somebody would say, "Who's there?" And then I'd say, "Avon calling." And then there'd be this long pause. And then you'd hear, "Nobody's home."
What does that kind of rejection really feel like?
It feels,
How did you live with
yeah,
that?
it made me annoyed.
I guess so.
Anyway,
Wow.
Michael C. Ford, I can't remember exactly how we met because it was so long ago, but
I'll tell you where it was.
yeah,
Well, it was at the Lowe's when they had that
the jazz.
jazz policy at that hotel by the beach.
Yeah.
And I saw everybody. You know, I saw that. Yes, of course, I saw you, and I
Stephanie.
saw
Stephanie
Tierney
Haynes,
there. I
yeah.
saw Stephanie Haynes. I saw
Probably Kate McGarry.
Kate
too.
McGarry. The full scene.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
every. I guess it was Friday nights or something.
Yeah.
And and I was thinking about that. I saw Joni Summers there,
Oh,
and I wanted to tell this
yeah,
Joni Summers story because
yeah.
it's so Santa Monica. You know, I went to Santa Monica College to get my high school diploma, which was another disaster. That way, I don't even want to tell you what that was like. But I was helping out backstage in the theater. They were putting on children's theater, and the lady who was in charge of the theater arts department wrote children's theater, so they were putting on her plays. So I was, schlepping scenery around, and there was a musical program coming in that afternoon. It was a Sunday afternoon, and I said, I'll help you out. Maybe they would bring it. So I schlepped this drum kit out on the stage, and the little apron on the Santa Monica College little theater stage. So I'm schlepping these Slingerland tubs onto the stage. And I think Colin Bailey was
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I think Max Bennett was. I had seen his name on Bethlehem when I was in junior high school. I was seeing his name in Bethlehem
Records.
record
Yeah,
sessions.
yeah.
So I don't know who the piano player was, but the girl singer was Joan Drost, and that was what. Before Joni's meteoric rise.
Oh, she
This
was
is-
adorable.
And this was like, it was supposed to say, Joan Drost,
Positively the most.
And some
Can I see that?
some Warner Brothers hot dog
Yeah.
said, no, we should have a name that's bright and like West Coast, and it should be palm trees and Santa Monica beaches and summertime.
Okay.
I got it. Let's call her Joni Summers, and that's how that happened.
and
And
Martin-
she told me that story, so
Yeah.
I'm sure other people know about it.
What? How adorable. God, she was really cute.
And
She must have been very young here, huh?
that was the next time I saw her
Wow.
was 15 years later.
Yeah.
I was invited by friends of mine who knew Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy. Edgar
Yeah.
Bergen
Yeah.
was on the radio as a ventriloquist. Now, a ventriloquist on the radio, automatically you're thinking, what? How it worked was amazing. I remember being 5, 6 years old, listening to Edgar Bergen talking to Charlie McCarthy. And Charlie McCarthy, to me, was a little kid who was talking to Edgar Bergen. Right? Did you know that Edgar Bergen was married to Frances Bergen, the jazz singer?
No.
That was his wife.
Wow.
And she recorded a Columbia date with Art Van Dam.
Wow.
So, long story, even longer. We were invited to the Playboy Club on New Year's Eve in 1974. Who do you think the girl singer was on stage?
Joni Summers.
Joni.
Wow.
So 15 years
Wow.
later, I said, "Hey, Joan," going back, "Hey, Joan." Nobody's called me that in 15 years. I said, I was like, she said, "Oh no, you were there." I said, "Yeah." And so that was the next time I saw her, I wrote something that was published, I think, later on in this magazine, all pieces that I paid tribute to women. And Joni Summers, that moment at Santa Monica College was recalled in these pages. And so I had it with me.
Yeah.
And I gave it, I didn't, I didn't have it then, but then I wrote this thing. So I ran into Joni Summers at a book signing party. I think it was for Brian Wilson. She was somehow connected with Beach Boys people, I think. So, and I ran into her, and I had this piece, and I gave it to her. And I think I found out later on that she had taken this piece that I'd written and hung it on the wall at her home. So that's
cool.
Page from this book is on a wall in Joni Summers' home library.
As long as we're talking about that book, can you find the poem with me in it?
That's that long piece where I'm paying tribute to singers, and I could. I mean,
is it? Can you read it?
Yeah, sure. I mean,
do you remember all your poetry?
I not really. There's so much of it. I would bother now. I called this tribute to all of these female vocalists, and I called it, you don't always have to sing the blues to sing the blues. You want me to read this?
Sure.
Okay. A lot of names you're going to remember, and a lot of them they're going to sing, but they were part of my life, so they go in here. There is a superscription by the poet Holly Prado, and she writes, "No chord is played so loudly that I forget the rest of the music." You don't always have to sing the blues to sing the blues, everybody. Your voice comes across Lackawanna rooftops to recall a legendary wine full of its own sophistication. When you sing, you recall urbane angels of espionage, modern jazz spies in your eyes, Delta rhythm saboteurs, black blues, but no white money. This is just to say Westlet, say Joya, say Aretha, say Dakota, say Helen Merrill, Helen Carr, Helen Humes, Helen O'Connell, Helen Forrest, Helen Ward, Patti Page, J.C. Parker, Janet Klein, Janet Brace, Laverne Baker, Marlene Verplank, Kendra Schenk, plus Lee Wiley, Lynn Carey, a few other bebop canaries, Betty Carter, Betty Roche, Betty Bennett, Betty Hutton, Tierney Sutton, Beverly Kenny, Jenny Smith, Keely Smith, Jackie Kane, Karen Allison, Etta James, Etta Jones, Joni Summers, Teddy King, Morgana King, Marilyn King. Marilyn King was actually at Ghirardelli Square and saw us when we did that.
I loved her.
Jerry Southern, Patty McGovern, Kate McGarry, Stacey Kent, Lucy Reed, Lucianne Evans, Lucianne Polk, Denise Donatelli, also Carmen McRae, Martha Tilton, Katie Lee, Peggy Lee, Nina Simone, Lena Horne, Shirley Horne, Christian Korb, Dina DeRose, Sue Rainey, Rosie Clooney. We love you, June Christie, Chris Connor, Jerry Winters, Pinky Winters, Ruth Price, Ruth Brown, Ruth Olay, Doris Day, Anita O'Day, Lady Day, Miss Billie Holiday. There's Blossom, Monique, Marianne Price, Marianne McCall, Diana Krall, Irene Krall, Julie Kelly, Julie London, Joe Stafford, Mary Ford, Audrey Morris, Terry Morell, Meredith D'Ambrosio, Kate Davis, Cathy Segal-Garcia, remember her?
I do.
Cheryl Barnes, Sandra Booker, Terry Thornton, Sonny Wilkinson, Ginny Powell, Dinah Shore, Dinah Washington, Connie Haynes, Stephanie Haynes, Claudia Acuna, Lola Albright, Zola Taylor. Zola Taylor was the singer with the Platters. Yeah, right. So I snuck her in the rhythm and blues. So there's a coda in the form of Deborah Ashe, and to all the rest of you who dazzle the others, we drink one another's voices. You make us what we always wanted to be. 12 Aprils wrapped into one good year. Oh, thank you for that round of appreciation.
Wow,
And,
that really.
well, it's you know,
lot.
it's not very reader friendly for people who don't know anything about music, is it?
No,
that's.
But when did you write that?
Well, I wrote that for this book.
Yeah.
For
That was
Women Under the Influence. Yeah, that was one.
9 years ago.
Oh,
or
that had to
something?
be. No, well, that was published in 2017.
Oh, published. Okay, so that's not that long ago.
So
but
I wrote it,
you wrote it.
right around the time we were doing Ghirardelli Square, and that came out of your idea that you should have these song lyrics from the Great American Songbook being delivered by singers like you and Stephanie and Sherry and Julie, and put it on stage and have me address those song lyrics by finding writing that I've done or write something that would complement the song lyrics.
Yeah.
So I did have to, was one curveball, Sherry Williams. She wrote a tune called Billy Strayhorn.
Oh.
No, I mean, she sang the song.
Oh,
Billy
okay,
Strayhorn,
okay, yeah.
But it was composed by Roger Kellaway.
Okay.
I had never written anything. I was surprised to realize that I'd never written anything about Duke Ellington's music, and naturally nothing about Billy Strayhorn. So I had to write it.
Wow.
I had
so
to write it.
so which one came out of that?
That came out, the Billy Strayhorn, and that was published in 2012 in this book called Atonal
Here,
Riffs
let me show.
to a Tone Deaf Border Guard.
I have this one too. I love that.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love that total.
And
I mean,
and
the title.
The cover is like a housewife putting 45 singles into a dishwashing machine. So I have control over any cover. I have a clause in my contracts that say I get to design my own book. Have you seen some book covers that look like biology textbooks? You know,
Yes,
they're not-
very odd.
Yeah, they're not.
I just
all-
wanted to show one picture of this group. I mean, I was looking for us after I was looking for us together, and I know I have some pictures, but it's just it's hard to find actually.
No, I was the last one I had was the one from the Blue Whale. I didn't even think about it. I was going to bring it.
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to show one picture of Alone Together. So this was a group that this group I put together. Here we go. This group I put together as an idea. One of the Cathy Segal-Garcia I did creations of I thought, well, singers, jazz singers, and 4 jazz singers with a trio, and we're each singing.
You open up by singing together,
Right? We sang.
and then
we
you
had a feud
each
together.
did a solo spotlight, and you were alone.
Yeah, and
So
then
it was
also
alone.
sometimes
You were alone together, basically.
exactly, and sometimes we sang like
Wow.
with one other person.
Well, look at that.
Yeah, this is
Wow.
Kate McGarry, Tierney Sutton, Cheryl
Cheryl Barnes, yeah.
and Stephanie Haynes.
Stephanie, right?
So this actually iteration was 5 of us. But yeah, I have other pictures too, but I won't.
Why did we choose 4 after the 5 that you initially had? Why did we choose 4? Because it just felt right. So with the trio and me, it would be an
Yeah.
octet, right?
Yeah,
And it was
Right.
the title of the programs that we did in different venues. The title of it was Octet in Jazz Language.
which is a great title.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
You probably came up with that.
Yeah, guilty as charged.
So, okay, so I want to ask some questions. I know you've had a lot of interviews and stuff, but these are questions I've never asked, and this show
And
is-
maybe I've never answered.
okay. But this show is my opportunity to ask these kind of questions. I want to know, were you born here?
No, born in Chicago.
Oh, right. I saw that
Born
in
in
the
Chicago
bio.
with the so I was very early by osmosis. I was hearing blues coming off of Wells and Halsted Street, and yeah. So music was, and my grandmother played Artie Shaw's "Dancing in the Dark" was my lullaby. She would put me to sleep.
Really?
So
Wow.
I could hear that.
Yeah.
So modern sounds.
Yeah.
And Artie was kind of modern,
was kind of
even for that
modern.
period.
Yeah,
of
he
time.
was.
So it was come into my brain pan, overflowing, and that's why I am who you see before you now. Somebody who by osmosis found
Yeah.
all of that music.
So your grandmother lived with you, or did?
Oh no,
did
she was just visiting all the time.
Oh,
But she
oh.
would visit. She'd come over and when nap time, she would
Oh, I
play.
see. I see.
She'd put on this little Victrola thing, and oh wow. So it was.
So did you have siblings?
No,
So
no. I was my parents' only mistake. I was, yeah.
And did you find that you had leaning towards words early, or what?
No,
how
as
was
a
it
matter of
growing
fact, I
up?
was totally turned off of words at the beginning, junior high school. It was high school, where it was that idea of the principal would ask a geometry teacher, "Oh, we got to do a poetry arc," because the school district said you got to give them some classic poetry. So a geometry teacher would read these poems to us, like from the British tradition, that were classic language that we could not
Couldn't relate to.
Oh well, not at all. And it was like she would read them as though she were reading geometry theorems, and algebra equations, and it was just something. And we were just sitting there, these bewildered students in this junior high school jail cell, and So I just said, I will never read or look at another poem again. And then just 3 years later, my last year of high school, I went to a place called the LA Jazz Concert Hall, which was owned and operated at the time. It was the Crenshaw Movie Theater.
Okay, now
in
wait
the
a minute.
50s.
How'd you get to LA? Did your family move?
Oh, they migrated when I was only 3.
Okay.
So I'm basically a West Coast kid.
Okay.
Because growing up, I'm surrounded by the only memories I have of Chicago are extremely vague, and so yeah, all of the nurturing really took place here. So I saw the marquee. It changed. It wasn't the Crenshaw Movie Theater anymore. It said L.A. Jazz Concert Hall, and it's all these names: Ben Webster, Jackie and Roy, Cal Jader, Benny Carter, who it turned out owned the club, with
really?
Jack Hampton, who was a booking agent,
Wow.
and Buddy DeFranco, who was a client of Jack Hampton's. So they were all, but the marquee had these names on it. And I said, wait a minute, Gene Norman is playing these people on the radio. And I was listening to KLAC AM radio, jazz on AM radio. And who would have thought?
Yeah.
You know? So I recognized those names, and I made a beeline across the street and walked in, and Jack Hampton was in there. He said, I'm going to be bringing down the poets from San Francisco. I said, poets? We're going to have a poetry reading here. I said, that's awful. Why would you do that? Nobody wants. He said, oh, well, this is modern poetry. And then he started explaining this to me. And I showed up, and it was a tribute to Dylan Thomas. So I read Dylan Thomas, and I said, why weren't we taught? Why wasn't somebody teaching me this?
Yeah.
You know? And then Rex Roth walks out on stage. Shorty Rogers and his Giants are playing, backing him up.
Wow.
And I just had an epiphany.
Yeah.
I won't go into what Rex Roth read because it might take us off the air. But I just said, wait a minute, this is incredible stuff. Then I studied with Rex Roth backstage. He would give me reading lists, and I wouldn't go to school. I would get on the yellow streetcar and ride down to Main Street and go to the library at Fifth and Hope and read what Rex Roth had suggested that I read. Then he said, when he was leaving, he said, Kenneth Patchen is coming down with the Chamber Jazz Sextet, Alan Ferguson and the Chamber Jazz Sextet. And you know what that was all about. I just went there, and it's and the learning process continued for me.
Yeah.
So and Patchen was another. You got to read this. He taught me about how important William Blake was. So when I go to UCLA, which was another interesting sidebar, because I didn't have a high school diploma, so I couldn't go into UCLA as a registered student. I was unregistered. I would sneak into classes. I went to Don Ellis's music theory and harmony class at Schoenberg Hall.
Wow.
I went to Joseph von Sternberg's lighting and directing class in the theater department, in the film department. So I'm getting educated in a way I never would have gotten educated if I had a blue book examination in the geography classes that were probably taught by the woman who read poetry to me in junior high school.
Probably.
So the whole thing, and when I walked into Joseph von Sternberg's class, that's when I met Ray Manzarek and Jim Morrison. A couple of years before they co-founded that notorious band, And so Morrison I said, Patchen told me about Blake. He said, Blake. And so we just talking about William Blake, his 18th century mystic poet, who was Morrison's meatball. He was studying Blake probably before I was. So we just had these wonderful conversations, and we would go to films being shown on campus, like these German expressionist films, Fritz Lang, Karl Dreyer, Joseph von Sternberg. I was screening all of movies he directed with Marlene Dietrich.
Huh.
I mean, what an education that was, just
Yeah.
looking at this stuff. And so when Morrison and Manzarek co-founded the Doors on the campus in front of the Gypsy Wagon, we had no idea that it was going to become a blueprint for rebellion in contemporary music. We had no idea at all.
Yeah.
Not until much later. So it was so I was learning more than I ever would have learned if I was a 4-year college hostage.
Wow, that's really cool.
yeah.
And that really indicates who, your personality.
Well,
of realizing that and doing it, like sneaking into the classes, and your thirst. You
And
had a huge
today, if
thirst.
I did that, Don Ellis, I told Don Ellis, I said, look, he said, Dennis, sit in the back. If I did that today, they would kick me out onto Westwood Boulevard so fast.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be. But you're not only a premier jazz artist, you are an expeditious music educator too. And what is it like for you to be able to teach people to travel through melodic structures and rhythmic patterns and enhance their musical intelligence? That's got to be a great, fulfilling kind of thing for you.
Well, again, it kind of depends on the person I'm teaching, right? Because sometimes it depends on their level of awareness, and what blocks they have, how many covers over the good stuff they have, how many layers. But when it's pretty wonderful when you can take the cover off of that and give them a realization. And then there are some students who show up who you just say red and they totally get what red is, and that's pretty exciting.
They bring a latent talent into the classroom.
Yeah, and without too many blocks.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They get what you're saying. They've just been waiting for somebody to actually give them the information.
Yeah. Well, I can identify with you because when I was at UOP, University of the Pacific, I was teaching teachers how to motivate kids through lesson plans in self-expression.
Yeah.
And teaching them skills and techniques that would allow them to write and express themselves. So, and they started the teachers to say, well, we get it. Could you come into our classrooms and demonstrate so we can see you put your theories into practice. And I said, well, that's a form of education too. So yeah, sure, I did that. Now, that used to be called College of the Pacific when Janet Leigh was going to theater school there and discovered by Norma Shearer and became an MGM star. Dave Brubeck was at College of the Pacific.
Yeah.
And when I was up there, went to do a program at the Pacific Theater with Ray Manzarek on keyboard.
Yeah.
We played at the Pacific Theater in Stockton at University of the Pacific. And I saw a street sign that said Brubeck Avenue. Yeah. So I said, okay, I'm home. So it said Brubeck was one of my first initiations, and that trio sound that he had, and that was because he couldn't afford the octet anymore. He had that wonderful octet, but every student was a student of Darius Milhaud, and they were bringing classical elements into jazz, and so Brubeck was, and I know that the East Coasters especially did not respect Brubeck as much as I did. They thought he was they
thought he was wimpy or something.
No, that he was hitting the piano like a percussion instrument. The piano is a percussion instrument.
Sure.
I thought he was playing it correctly because it was very dynamic, but they didn't like that. They called him hammer hands, you know. He was trying, but what he was doing, it just seemed to me that he brought, like he taught me that the keyboard was like 88 drums, you know?
Yeah.
And so Brubeck was very important to me, even though he's not, you know, it's too bad that there is that, because he's a wonderful guy. He's a terrific guy.
Yeah, you're right. And, you know, I mean, growing up, Brubeck was not somebody that my dad like would play a lot. My dad was a sax player, and but he played Stan Kenton, and he wasn't a bebop guy really, but we listened to Rosemary Clooney, Ella Fitzgerald, and the High-Lows, and
the High-Lows, the High-Lows, who were like the Four Freshmen. They were using spread chord harmony. Well, the High-Lows were more acrobatic than the Freshmen. The Freshmen were like Stan Kenton's trombone section.
Yeah.
You know, and the High-Lows were all over the musical map. Gene Perling was sort of kind of a genius. And so, you know, he directed the High-Lows into really going into uncharted territory where vocals were concerned.
Do you know Clark Burroughs?
Yeah, I do. we went to USC Dental School.
Really?
He was in the waiting room, and I walked up to him and I said, "How are the High-Lows?" And he said, "They're great." You know. So,
hey, you know what? There's a singer here, but he's probably, if he had heard your poem about all the women singers, he's probably going to ask why there isn't one with the male singers. Michael Campbell.
But there's a guy, Mike Campbell. Mike, that's what I was talking about. You know, when I would see all these girl singers in these different places, I said, "Where's Mike Campbell? Why isn't he there?" And I showed up at a deli on Wilshire Boulevard. He was singing, and one of the few times I ever saw him play a gig, you know. So he'd recorded with Jimmy Rolls, you know, we also had a fondness for the Pacific Coast League. And in my new book, there is a tribute to the Pacific Coast League. And
what is that?
The Pacific Coast League was barnstorming minor league ball players playing AAA ball because Major League Baseball did not exist west of the Rockies. Oh. So when I was 9, 10, 11 years old, I would get on the streetcar, the red car in Pasadena, and go down to 42nd and Avalon and see the Angels play at Wrigley Field. And then I would get off on Temple Street and catch the bus west on Beverly to Fairfax and Beverly, where Gilmore Field was hosting the Hollywood Stars. So I saw the Hollywood Stars and Los Angeles Angels have these crosstown combats, you know. Huh. And so Mike Campbell and I had that. So we were talking for ages. I haven't seen him in so long.
He said, "I still love my Hollywood Stars."
Oh, of course he does. Who doesn't? Mike, I got to tell this story. I went to CBS Television City, which when Gilmore Field was bulldozed, they built Television City. Huh. So I went to an occasion, this is maybe 15 years ago. Yeah. Somebody some very conscionable person at CBS said, "Why don't we put a plaque dedicated to the Hollywood Stars on the building where home plate was?" So I went to and I saw Gene Handley, Bobby Bragan, and all the heroes of mine. They were there, you know, and it was. But before that, I found out that Chuck Stevens, who was this remarkable first baseman for the Hollywood Stars, he was like a ballet dancer. He was the greatest fielding first baseman, in my humble opinion.
Yeah.
My not so humble opinion, really, because and then he went to So I went down to see him, and I said, I want to do this tribute to the Pacific Coast League, and I just sat with him for 2 or 3 hours and went through names and places, and I wrote it and I sent it to him, and Chuck Stevens wrote back to me and he said, we're having an Association of Baseball banquet. Would you read that to people? And I got up and I looked out. I see Broadway Bill Schuster, shortstop for the Los Angeles Angels, Lou Stringer, second baseman for the Hollywood Stars, and all of these people that I watched when I was 10 years old, sitting and I'm reading this thing. And I mentioned one of the great catchers, the Hollywood Stars, was Jack Papke. And he went on to manage the Santa Barbara Dodgers. It was a farm team for the Brooklyn Dodgers. And so I mentioned Jack Papke. And at the end, I didn't know he was there. He comes up, he says, I'm Pappy Jack. I'm Pappy Jack. He puts out his hand. I said, oh my God. So it was like,
wow.
I went to baseball heaven.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah. It's kind of like jazz heaven, isn't it?
Oh, God.
Mike mentioned Carlos Bernier.
Oh, Carlos Bernier.
Lino Donoso and Monty Bascal.
Yeah, Monty Bascal, second baseman too. Yeah, and Red Munger and all these. The names just kept coming like waves of recognition. So yeah, Carlos Bernier got kicked out of the game for spitting on an umpire. He spit on an umpire, and you don't even talk back to anybody. So Bernier was kicked out of the game, and he went on to Carlos Bernier. He was a slugger, and he went on to play for the Sacramento Solons, I think, and won all of the Pacific Coast League teams. But when the Dodgers bulldozed Ebbets Field and rolled west, and the Polo Grounds sent the New York Giants to San Francisco, everything changed. And the last wooden stadium was in the Hawaiian Islanders in Hawaii.
Wow.
And the left fielder was Carlos Bernier for the last remaining Pacific Coast League team before that was bulldozed and gone. And Carlos Bernier sadly got cancer and didn't want to live that quality of life and that. So yeah, wow. A sad story. But
Michael said he's tearing up.
Oh man, yeah. Well, I used to. I've been writing about them so much that they become the Hollywood Stars and the Los Angeles Angels have become second nature to me now.
Do you know Karen Magoo? She said jazz plus baseball equals joy and joy.
Oh God. Yeah,
that's really cool. That's a very good connection.
But I identify with you in education because, like I say, when I was at UOP, I was inventing all of these language arts activities and prompters and brain teasers. And there was a poet friend of mine who was teaching at a prep school called Crossroads. Crossroads was founded by this legendary educator and poet, Paul Cummins. And Levitt called me and said, look, I got to leave school. I got to go someplace else. Do you want to come to Crossroads and teach? Because I said, I've been doing that. I've been doing that up here in the valley, the North Central Valley, right, in Stockton. So I went down, met Paul Cummins, started teaching at Crossroads, and then I went somewhere else. I started doing spoken word records with Harvey Kubernick, who he founded a band, like a label called Freeway Records. So I was on there with all of these musicians and poets and street creatures, and they were all recording spoken word on this, reading out of tour books, and things. So it was Kubernik's daydream turned into a reality, and
So did you go? Did you teach or no?
Yeah, then I left Crossroads and got out of touch, and then all of a sudden, like 2016, I run into Paul Cummins, and we had lunch together. He said, "Look, I'm co-founding a new school.
Oh,
It's a prep school in the private sector. It's going to be called Tree Academy. Could you teach there?" And I said, at that moment, I was virtually on the edge of eviction. Yeah. And I said,
yes.
I could do that. So I went to, and Tree Academy, I've been there for like the last couple of years. I was there the beginning.
Yeah.
Tree Academy has been there now for a couple of years, and to be able to have you talk about kids coming into a classroom with already a latent talent.
Yeah.
I got to tell you this story. There's a 13-year-old girl who came into my class, and she's writing like a combination of J.D. Salinger and Joyce Carol Oates. And I said, "Have you ever heard of J.D. Salinger?" She said, "No." "Have you ever heard of Joyce Carol Oates?" She said, "No." So she's a borderline genius, probably.
Yeah.
And I already showed some of her work to people, and she said, "Who is this?" I said, so, but before I allow any publisher to get close to her, I want to talk to her parents and say, how do they feel about, she probably, 13 years old, before she leaves high school, and she'll stay at Tree Academy probably.
Yeah.
She's going to be a monster.
Yeah.
And who knows where she can go. But there are others. I have a block 5 on Thursdays. 4 girls in this class. It's just like, where's this talent coming from? I said, wow, So my job is you cannot teach people how to write.
Right.
You have to nurture them, guide them through the labyrinthine maze of
personal
the creative
discovery
process,
too, right?
And so that's my responsibility, and I have to protect them too. I have to protect them from people if they miss a class. I don't have them make it up. It's just why they're already writing. That's all they have to do.
Yeah,
just write.
Yeah,
that's it. And so, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah,
I'm actually in this environment, and
you're teaching.
Yeah,
that's I want to Karen Marguth. That's who Karen Magoo is. Karen Marguth.
Yeah,
I don't know if you know.
She's a student.
No.
Oh.
Karen Marguth. I don't think I know you. Hi. But
you've got an audience list there? Is that what happens?
Yes.
Because we can't see them because it isn't.
No, we can't.
No.
But we're going to show a little bit. Michael has some really interesting things. So I don't know how early or late you guys came on. One thing that Michael has done is he met when he was, let's say, studying at college.
Well, no, I was at when I met Ray and Jim.
Yeah, he met
before the
Jim Morrison
before
and Ray Manzarek.
Before the deluge.
Yeah, and then they became the Doors. But and so he continued. He was
and
already
on my new record album, which is
right there.
Yeah.
Let's see. Sorry, let me stop sharing for a second.
Surviving members of the Doors are actually on that record.
Ray Manzarek, Robbie Krieger, and John Densmore.
And it was so organic the way that happened.
Yeah.
I have to say that that's Hen House Studios.
Oh.
And they invited me, they said, write a record and we'll record it.
Now,
So I did.
Though.
But this is how the Doors got on this record. I always felt uncomfortable about exploiting friends of mine.
Yeah.
And so I wrote the record, I recorded scratch vocals for them.
Yeah.
And then I got a job in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Yeah.
To do readings and to do some radio and to have my plays produced at the Auxiliary Dog Playhouse. That was another experience. We can talk about that later. But I came back, and they had put electric drums on there, and to mess around with what music they could put on this with what I had written and recorded. And John Densmore, who had recorded tribal jazz at Hen House Studios, his album called Tribal Jazz, showed up and said, "You want to hear what Ford is doing? Listen to this." And Densmore said, "You can't have electric drums with that guy." I said, "Electric drums." He said, "I'm going to come in, I'm going to lay down drum tracks for you on this thing." So I'm in Albuquerque. I don't know this is going on. I come back, and they said, "You want to hear your record?" I said, "Yeah." And I said, "Yeah, those electric drums." He said, No. Densmore came in and played all these snare drum, African talking drums, conga drums, everything. Laid down drum tracks and everything, all the cuts. So I was talking to Ray up in Napa Valley. I said, "Ray, guess who's playing drums on my record?" He said, "John Densmore is playing drums." And Ray said, "I want to be on that record." So I said, "You want to play keyboards on this record?" He said, "Yeah." So we'd already recorded for Hen House, and that track that you showed in the beginning, that was at Hen House Studios. So I said, "Where do you want to record?" He said, "Well, I'm real comfortable in a room called Studio D in Sausalito." So Hen House flies up to South, and I was reading in Stockton at UOP when the recording sessions happened. So I swung over to Sausalito. So I went over to Oakland and met Hen House Studios people there. Harlan Steinberger, the CEO and chief engineer and producer at Hen House Studios, and we drove to Sausalito, and Ray just laid down all these keyboard tracks. He was playing Hammond B3. He was playing grand piano. He was playing a Casio. He was playing every keyboard imaginable, so including a Roland 88 electric. So we're leaving the studio that night, and Ray said, "You know what? You want to get Robbie to play on this record." It's all organic. It all happened in a very organic way.
Now, I have a question.
Yeah.
So were they songs or were they your poetry?
No, it was. They wanted me to write a record of language art, prose, an admixture of poetry and prose.
Okay.
Which is what this book is.
So they created the music under.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So it's really interesting. I'm going to get a copy. So now I want to show.
Oh, that also, they did it in two formats, CD and 12-inch LP.
Yeah, nice. So now I want to show, this is not probably it, but but I do want to show this. This is from Hen House, and this is a different thing, right?
No, this is, I think you wanted to put on the first cut from the album, and that's isn't that no, that's the video you showed in the very beginning.
Oh, this one? This one, Ray Manzarek.
Yeah, so what you're looking at, I don't know where you found that other one.
I'm going to do this.
I have no idea.
I want to do this one. Here we go. This is pretty cool.
There it is.
Those sneakers look like.
Oh, this is a video.
Why can't poetry readings be attended by only those who used to drink at Dino's or Dante's or Billy Berg's Swing Club, the Angel Angel Room, Parisian Room, the Copper Room, the Captain's Table, Zardy's, the Encore, the Tally Ho, the Beverly Cavern, Club Alabama, the Hillcrest, the Summit, Ivy's, Chicken Shack, Jack's Basket, the Surf Club, the Strollers, the Cloister, Tiffany Lounge, the Trade Winds, the Hi-Hat, the Parrot Cage, Memory Lane, the Downbeat Club, the Dunbar Hotel, the LA Jazz, Concert Hall, Concerts by the Sea.
There was a time when one became two. There was a time when two became four. And there was a time when LA was opening up a door. And there was a time when one became two. There was a time when two became four. And there was a time when LA was opening up a door.
What was full has become a baleful cavity in the tooth of music. Why is it no surprise to see poets in LA standing at the edge of a tremendous and treacherous gorge? Do they stand in some gnarly perpendicular manner between Barstow and the blue burgeoning breakers at Huntington Beach? Or maybe Rainbow Bridge over the banging blue surge of Big Sur? Let me be like a bridge. I think it would be the best way to be run over.
I had forgotten how energetic that animation was, but it was the producer Harlan Steinberger at Hen House. He said this has got to have animation, and he got gave it to this Academy Award-winning animator. Apparently, I didn't know anything about. I didn't know it was. That's another thing I didn't know what was happening until it happened later. So it was. Yeah, and I must tell you that the vocals were Tommy Jordan, who has done a lot of vocals for Hen House Studios.
Yeah.
And he and Harlan Steinberger got together and wrote those melodic interludes that went in between the
there was a time
spoken art.
There was a time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, right. And they created lyrics. Some of them were repetition of lyrics that were in the language.
And,
but then they did other things that were just astonishing.
Yeah.
And somebody said, why did you put vocal? I said, I didn't. Vocal, I've never done it before. So do you mind if we put vocals on this? And I said, I've never done that. So always willing to push the envelope into dangerous territory. I said, yeah, put some vocals on it. Yeah, go ahead. Knock yourselves out, so.
I want to ask kind of a off the subject question, but so being a poet, especially in the time that you came up and became a poet, Was there, and I can't ask you like exactly what your state of mind was compared to something else because you were just being yourself.
Yeah,
you were,
I was pretty jaded and suspicious.
You were?
And wary and cautious.
Oh, you were?
Oh, yeah.
Coming up in the poetry field.
Yeah, I didn't like what I heard too much,
Yeah.
a lot of it.
Yeah.
And now it's turned into Hallmark greeting card surrealism and aggravated street rap, which isn't the pure street rap that Gil Scott Heron was doing. It's dumbed down. America's been dumbed down,
Yes.
pretty much. Film is made for 14-year-old mentality.
Yeah.
Movies look like video games, a lot of them.
Yeah.
And music is pretty much the 10 top tunes on the garbage parade. There's not anything elevating or exciting and inspiring.
Well, that's which is why we go into jazz so much.
Well, yeah.
Right?
Cathy, in the year 2005, which is into the 21st century, there were 22 jazz rooms, 22 venues that featured live jazz
20
in the city.
Yeah.
22.
Yeah. It's a lot.
Now, how much? Well,
I know.
I don't even want to talk about it.
I wanted to show you something talking about that. And let's just go. I wanted to show you this. Paul Kreibich, who you know and love, made this list, which I think you'll find interesting and funny. Okay, so can you see?
Right.
So Dante's, Shelley's Manhole,
Well,
Carmelo's,
sure.
Alphonse's, Chadney's. These were the newer ones. $2
Chadney's
bills.
was in the Valley, but he also had another one out on Wilshire Boulevard.
I
Did you
didn't
know
know that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
$2 bills, which was my home for a while. Sound room, cafe, concert, sound room. I kind of started that room a little bit with Ted Green. At my place, Lake Cafe, The Spot, Concerts by the Sea, Jazz Safari, Sand Dance. I don't remember that one. Sunset Pub, Studio Cafe Balboa, Studio Cafe Corona Del Mar, White House in Laguna, Sid's Blue Beat, Parisian Room, Marla's Memory Lane, Newport 17, Tiki Island, Dino's, Residuals, Spazio's, West End LAX, Crown Plaza LAX, Marriott LAX, Sheridan Gateway, El Matador, S.
I mentioned a lot of these clubs in that.
I know.
In that, the lost jazz bars of L.A.
Yeah.
What about the Encore Room, the Tiffany Lounge, the Captain's Table, the Marquee, where Matt Dennis played? Bobby Troop was at the China Trader.
I think he wrote all those down.
I was.
Yeah. I mean,
eavesdropping on all of that stuff. When I was 14, I was standing outside of the Encore Room listening to Bobby Troop and his group. Well, I knew that he'd composed Route 66, so I knew who he was.
Yeah.
But I was standing there, and the waitress in it said, "You want to come in, kid? You want to come in?" And so I hid behind the cigarette machine. Remember when they had cigarette machines that come? So I hid behind his, and Bobby Troop introduced Julie London to the world that night. I was
oh God,
and they became like surrogate parents to me, Bobby and Julie. I miss them every day.
Karen is asking, have you heard the recordings of Ben Boone and Phil Levine blending improvisational jazz with his poetry?
I must have missed that. What was it again?
Ben Boone and Phil Levine.
I missed it. No. Well, the West Coast?
Was it West Coast, Karen? Tell us. Takes a second for our questions to get to them.
Yeah.
Maybe she will answer us quickly. But yeah, I mean, well, that's so. I mean, it's interesting to me when I hear a poet it's a similar feeling. Of course it is, because really what we're tapping into as creative artists is source, right? We're tapping into source. And when you hear that, you know it right away. So when I hear a poet with that, and it reminds me of what I hear when I love jazz, playing
Oh,
jazz.
so you related immediately to the music.
Yeah. Well,
There's
that
a musical
feeling.
connection there.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, it must have been what I did inherently. I mean,
Yeah.
then when I started to write, music it was locked into my head,
Yeah.
and my brain pan was overflowing with it. You know.
So when you wrote, do you think that you were responding to that?
Oh, a lot of it.
A lot
Without even,
yeah.
it's all unconscious too. A
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
it is unconscious.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll purposely, if I'm going to write a tribute to Mingus, or like you do in this book, with tributes to Bird and Mingus and Monk and when I'm Billy Strayhorn, and that was thanks to Sherry Williams. You know.
Yeah. By the way, Ben is a music professor at Fresno State, and Phil Levine was the U.S. Poet Laureate, and he also taught.
Oh,
at Fresno
Philip
State.
Levine. Philip Levine at Fresno? Sure. He didn't show up at my reading when I read it with Jello at Fresno.
That's why you forgot his name.
No, he did. Well, no, I told that to Paul Cummins, the guy who
Paul Cummins,
called Paul Cummins at Tree Academy. He said, he never showed up. I said, why should he? You know, he doesn't want to hear what I'm saying.
Do you ever have writer's block? Have you ever?
No, I think a lot of people wish I would get it. What, another book? You wrote another book. Oh, okay.
You're probably one of the poets that I know who's like prolific in your putting out books.
Oh, I
and
never thought of myself as
recordings.
prolific at all. It's just over the years, my first book, Stuttering in the Starlight, was published in 1970.
Oh, wow.
So what are we talking about? I've stopped counting, maybe between 28, 35, but in different formats. I mean, they're all different formats: books, chapbooks, recordings, laser discs, 12-inch vinyl, CD. It's all different formats. you
Yeah.
know?
So you've continued, probably your idea and other people approach you with those ideas, right? Like, let's make it into a recording.
Yeah, that was pretty much, like Hen House, write a record for us. They knew I'd done Fire Escapes. They heard that.
Yeah.
And they got it, but it was just, but to want to produce a $10,000 record that they know is not going to sell
Yeah.
is pretty amazing.
Yeah. It's interesting.
But I sold dozens of copies. Dozens. It was amazing.
How about I don't remember the name of it.
What do you?
The play that you wrote that I came to see. It was in West LA.
Did you go to that with the 3 one-acts at the Santa
Yeah.
Monica Playhouse?
Was it Santa Monica? I thought it was in West LA, like near Melrose and La Brea, in that area.
Was it?
But it could have been.
There was a Stella Adler. I had plays done at Stella Adler. I think it was Blondes Don't Bother to Knock.
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, that got a lot of airplay. People wanted to do a. Gary Graver, Orson Welles' cinematographer, shot footage on Blondes Don't Bother to Knock.
Wow.
And the footage exists on it. It never happened. The artist was doing some sort of drop leaf artwork and into the film version of the play. Had disappeared, and so it never got completed.
I just looked it up, but there's Don't Bother to Knock,
That was
which apparently
that's what I
is
ripped off,
like a Marilyn Monroe
Yeah,
movie.
that's where I got it. Blondes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, my book, To Kiss the Blood Off Our Hands,
Yeah.
comes from a European film noir film called To Kiss the Blood Off Our Hands. That film was called Kiss the Blood Off My Hands.
Oh,
And did you know that I could have called it Kiss the Blood Off My Hands and nobody would have said boo? Titles cannot be considered plagiary.
oh, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, if I could call my next book Gone with the Wind, Moby Dick,
Oh,
Tale of Two Cities. It'd be counterproductive, but I could do it.
I didn't know that. I mean, I noticed that some titles are similar, but I just didn't.
Yeah,
think about
I lift ideas and concepts and put my own twist on them.
I remember reading, Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote Eat, Pray, and Love. And she also wrote a book after that called Big Magic, and which was a really good book. And it basically kind of gives you permission to be creative. But she writes in a very friendly way.
Yeah.
And but she said when she was young and starting to write, she committed to writing every day. And
I've heard that.
by doing that, like when she would start a project and everything would be okay for a minute, and then it got kind of weird, like she hated it or whatever. And then because she was writing every day,
Yeah.
she moved through that. So then she started recognizing every time she started writing that that would be one of the of the first steps that she'd go through, hating it.
Well,
Which is
some
pretty
people,
cool.
yeah, some people swear that you need to have writing time. You need to write between
Oh, yeah.
10 o'clock in the morning and 2 o'clock in the afternoon. A rigid schedule, and drive yourself into that writing mode and do it. I just wait for the imp of the absurd to whisper in my ear, and then I'm gone. I don't do anything else.
Yeah, the imp of the absurd, that's what some people call the muse. But that's great. Imp of
I've
the
heard
absurd.
that too. That people they do have a muse. The Beat generation who settled in Venice West, Venice Beach, where my teacher was Jack Hirschman at UCLA. Was teaching my poetry teacher at UCLA in the mid '60s, and he was in Venice. And so, yeah, there was that kind of weird energy that was there, but. Oh, I just never locked into that. I just was always, something would strike me and I'd write it down. I'd snatch a dialogue I once rode a bus from Fresno to Glendale. And I had on my notebook,
God.
and I said, why don't I try to look out the window and capture as many images as I can out off the window, but then there were people talking, and I'd write down what they were saying. I'd write down snatches of dialogue, and then I'd write out something that happened on the bus, and I'd look out the window, I'd write down something else. And I ended up with about 88 pages of scribbling.
Wow, yeah.
And I started editing it down and cutting it down, and I ended up calling what I'd written Greyhound. And there was Jack Grapes, who's a poet, was editing a magazine called Omnibus.
Oh,
And so I sent this Greyhound, this absolutely reader unfriendly thing that nobody could possibly understand. I sent it to him and said, Jack, I wrote this on the bus. So he published it. And it shows up in this book of mine from 2013, Crosswire
great cover.
Casseroles.
great cover, man.
Isn't it? With a stop and go. I mean, it's just, that's in front of what used to be the Cherokee bookstore.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, and there's starlets walking across the street. I'm sure it isn't public domain. It's probably showing up. Probably get sued for showing that picture. But
Okay, so here's just a few of the quotes that people have, recommendations or reviews. Michael C. Ford is driven. Sometimes we see him crossing the divider, crashing over a cliff, plunging into Rattlesnake Canyon as those cameras roll. Oh, wow, that's great. Edward Field.
Edward Field from
author
New
of
York
Stand
poet.
Up, friend with me.
God bless him. He came up with the goods.
I
didn't he?
love that.
Yeah.
Okay, Ford's Chicago savvy love of dreamland, Hollywood's lost glory, radiating this nostalgic pulse that moves through these poems like a burgundy cruiser taking Sunset Boulevard. You just have to relax, take in the emotional turf, enjoy a smooth ride. Wanda Coleman.
Wanda Coleman, one of the great urban poets of Los Angeles.
I love how she writes.
Yeah.
There's a flow. There's something strange, interesting, sleek, and smooth crossed with an elusive music in Ford's work that creates mysterious avenues of verse. Michael McClure.
That's Michael McClure, who was a great friend of Ray Manzarek, and they were great supporters of my work, and I ended up writing an elegy for Michael McClure. We lost him last year. So.
Oh, he's always there talking with his typewriter eyes. Listen to him. Yeah, Ray Manzarek.
Yeah.
MCF, Michael C. Ford, writes for all of us who have earned our bad conduct medals by firing words into the dark with a snub-nosed revolver Bogart borrowed from Rexroth. And he draws blood with every wild shot. Rex Weiner.
Rex Weiner is the editor of,
that is so cool.
You know, Rex Weiner was the editor of High Times magazine.
Oh, really?
Everybody, yeah.
I remember
So you can,
that one.
yeah, I can imagine. And Rex and I collaborated on a play based on the concept that people were gathered in the early 1960s at the San Remo bar in the Greenwich Village, and it came back. We brought people in to play the parts of Jack Kerouac, Lawrence Ferlinghetti, Allen Ginsberg, everybody, the full scene. Yeah. And
Wow, that must have been good.
well, we performed it in a couple of places. Yeah.
That sounds great.
Gene
I'd like to
Autry
see that.
Museum. That was a treat.
Now, does something like that?
that we actually they wanted that. They asked for it. They saw it done.
Really?
They saw it done at Beyond Baroque, and they said, "We want it at the Gene Autry Museum." I said, "Yeah, okay."
So does that, something like that in your lifetime, does that get shown again and again?
No, I mean, I don't think so, because it was a live action play.
Yeah.
So nobody filmed it.
But I mean, does it get performed again and again?
Oh, I only if the producer Eve Branstein wanted to take it to New York and put it on the stage. It's the only way it would exist.
Yeah. Wow. Sounds great.
Yeah.
We have a little bit more. Oh, you sold one more. I just downloaded Fire Escapes from iTunes. My friend Roland.
Oh, Fire Escapes. Yeah.
Which we can listen to. Joyce Glasgow, I got here late. Does Michael write poetry spontaneously, intuitively to live jazz, live in the moment as part of his creative process, or to visual images which come to him inspired by the music being played? Or does the poetry come from a different place or sensibility in his mind or psyche or intuition?
Wow, that's
There's a
such
sentence.
a great question that I don't want to ruin it with an answer. But I know what he's saying. I said, no, I have never gone up in front of a band and improvised to what chord changes or what note clusters are being played.
Yeah.
I've never done that.
Yeah.
I've listened to music and then reflected on it and then mirrored the music with language. I've done that.
Yeah.
But
never improvised.
not really. No, I'm not. Improvisation, I improvise when I write. It automatically, it's improvising.
Yeah.
A lot. Then I have to clean it up.
Yeah.
Then I have to, all writing is rewriting. You must, that's the big lesson.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
I wrote a book. I'm in the process of moving it into self-publishing, but I wrote a book. It's a small book.
Is it desktop publish? You're going to publish it on the
Doing
screen?
Yeah. I'm doing it through Amazon, through Amazon, I think.
Oh, okay.
But
I don't know what they do.
I don't either. But anyway, I'll find out.
Yeah.
It's a small book. It's a philosophy book on how the same lesson in life applies to voice technique and singing jazz.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean,
That's a piece of work, isn't it?
those are areas that I know about, but you know, everybody has those areas that the same lesson. Have you ever noticed that when you're teaching, that you're teaching this lesson and this lesson applies to life and writing? You know, it applies to a lot of different things. The same lesson.
Every time I go into class to teach, I can actually say this, each and every time I go into a classroom at Tree Academy,
Yeah.
I learn something from my students,
Yeah.
possibly more than they're learning from me. I do something snaps, something clicks. I said, oh, wow, I hadn't thought about that before, you know?
Isn't that great?
Having a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid to you know, turn me on to something I hadn't thought of before. It's pretty miraculous.
Yeah, it is
The
miraculous.
teaching process is, I don't think of it as a job. I think of it as an art form.
Yeah. Yeah. Where is the Tree Academy?
Tree Academy is on Holloway, that little street that comes up from La Cienega and forks off into Sunset. It's on the same campus that St. Victor's Roman Catholic Church is on.
Oh,
That, if you know where St. Victor's is, and it used to be, when Paul Cummins told me where it was, I said, wait a minute, that used to be Pacific Heights School. And he said, yeah, they tanked and we're going to take it over.
oh. You said La Cienega and Sunset? Is that what you
La
said?
Cienega, Holloway is a street that comes up from La Cienega
Yeah.
and comes up a little hill
Yeah,
and forks off
Oh.
into Sunset,
I see.
where Book Soup is, by the way.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Now, Book Soup is the location of where the Cinematheque 16 the cinema was.
Yeah.
And that's where Jim Morrison invited me to read my work for the very first time at a benefit for Norman Mailer. Norman Mailer was running for the mayor of New York and needed money.
Really?
And his campaign promise was he was going to have Manhattan Island secede from the Union and become another country. And Morrison said, we got to help this guy. We got to do this. And Andy Warhol did a big show in New York for him, raised tons of bucks,
Wow.
and asked Morrison if he would do this. So Morrison marshaled me into service, and thanks to him, putting the laurel wreath on my poet's head, he brought me into the public arena by doing that. So it's interesting that the very first reading I did was where Book Soup is now, which is 2 blocks from where I'm teaching people how to write,
Yeah.
which you're really not supposed to be able to do. Teach people how to write. That's a silly thing to try to do, isn't it? No, you guide them through the maze of the creative process.
Yeah.
But that's weird, isn't it? That
It is.
major factions in my life
Yeah.
occurred within
So
a
close.
2-block radius.
Yeah. Yeah.
First reading, 2 blocks down the road, probably where I'll do my last reading. God, I mean, stranger things have happened. Guinness Book of Records, we're talking. Are we talking Guinness Book of Records here? Yeah.
You've traveled to Europe too, right?
Yeah, well,
And
that
done
was
things
because
there.
an actress named Clotilde Monod, who was a great friend of Boulanger. She was married, an actress married to Barbara Schroeder, the great filmmaker.
Mm-hmm.
She found a book of mine and started isolating pieces and turning them into internal monologues and created a one-woman vehicle for herself.
Would that have been played in Hollywood?
No,
Like the
yeah,
play?
right.
Maybe that was what I saw. That sounds kind of familiar. That it
Did
was
you?
a
Manzarek
French
and I opened
person.
for that.
I think I was there. That's what I think.
Yeah, we opened for that play.
Yeah.
But she did it and translated all this into French. You know, it took all my translated into French, and delivers it. And you saw her do the American version of that.
Yes, that's what I saw. I don't know where it was, but it seemed like
she's fluent in English, so she
Yeah.
was able to do that.
I remember being there. Yeah.
And she was here to do some kind of radio thing, and so.
So you did, but you did it in Europe, right?
That was in 1993.
Okay.
And it was done then in 1994, I think it's 1993. But she did it at all of these different, because it was a one woman vehicle, single actress out on stage. She was able to do it at all. She could play it in the middle of an intersection if she wanted to, you know. So it was very easy for her to find locations.
Yeah.
Some lobby of a winery in the Loire Valley, you know. It was all. It was. She did it everywhere. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So did you work more in Europe?
No. Oh, I did a reading at Shakespeare and Company, while the original guy who was there after Sylvia Beach left. I mean, this guy took it over. Whitlock, I think was his name. Whitlock is him, but he took it over, and he asked me to read there. So I did a reading at Shakespeare and Company, and it's like reading in a bookstore anywhere, except when I turned around, I saw Notre Dame Cathedral through the window. It was all of a sudden I'm saying, "Oh, wait a minute! It was like Wizard of Oz. I'm not in Kansas anymore."
Do you think we should or we can listen to something from Fire Escapes? And if so, which one would you?
You have
should
something
I play?
from Fire Escapes?
I have the whole Fire Escapes album. The day Raymond Chandler.
The day Raymond Chandler died. Sure.
Okay, here's the day Raymond Chandler died. I'm not sure who Raymond Chandler is.
Raymond Chandler is a noir detective novelist.
Okay.
A lot of his films are turned into noir films too. So yeah, if you don't know who Raymond Chandler, you'll know who he is after this.
Okay.
The day Raymond Chandler died. Several gangsters took over the world. It was almost literary. He'd come to the end of it. He'd arrived in a place where he didn't need kindness. With a temperature like this, even degrees of compassion become ludicrous. She said, "I know, ding-dong, Dolly, but I've been rung around and you got me locked into your head like a brain tumor. So before your next office rent is up, I'm going to be an instrument of disenchantment and despair." Then he gets sapped and takes a dive into a black pool where water kept evaporating. This was the result of his fascination with how she always seemed to have all the questionable reception of Lucretia Borgia hosting a cheese and wine party. When he came to, he knew trouble is heaps of flaxen hair overflowing like lava from hell. There were microwave ovens in her eyes, blowing up too many recipes for a machine gun casserole. And it was all so aggressive upon the original hunger. "I'm under arrest," he said. She used to cruise this getaway car just like a marriage in overdrive. Now words separate the way gears do under a General Motors metallic roof of love. For so many long years, following the yammer of criminal girls into beds full of persecutions, he'd been noble in battle with blackmail, moody, drunk in bitter mystery. "You're under duress," she said. Sometimes when she spoke, it was like stroking kittens or a nuisance of stolen pearls. Politicians and other charlatans break down doors manufactured in the British Isles, and he says, "There's no place like home in a reluctant suburb." It isn't too long before his ratiocinative skill litters the floor with scribblings. Any other private investigator would have heard shots. But behind his brutal and cynical career pounds the pump of a bloody, sentimental fool. Although he's been cautious on the road, he remembers how she'd drive this car, the driving rain, how more of his vision had been blurred than he cared to admit. Afterwards, they step out onto one of the terraces of an old hotel. Palm fronds arm the view of an ocean maudlin with sunset.
Yeah, it's kind of dark.
Yeah, not exactly a flag waver, is it? I think I was. It's an example of how I was letting the music drag me through the language.
Right.
I was letting that be my
Your guide.
my thermometer. Yeah.
Yeah, that music was cool.
Yeah, it was just all electronic. It was Michael Campagna.
Oh.
Michael Campagna, the guitarist from the Average Johnsons.
Oh.
Yeah. Yes, he was. He produced that record album and played on it. And incidentally, that tenor saxophone you heard.
Yeah.
That was a guy who had a band called Jazz Fiction.
That's a good name.
Well, yeah, it was some terrific players. I worked with some incredible players, and so.
Cool. So do you, I know you brought, you, by the way, you're stepping on your record. I don't know if you want to do
No,
that. So you brought some other records to show too, didn't you?
This is an interim album. This is a Motel Cafe was that's a real cafe, and so the motel cafes that used to exist in the 50s, that was probably the last one. It's in Manteca, California, in the North Central Valley, and Jennifer Lagiera took the photo. Photojournalist took that.
Oh, there's
the picture.
Dead Kennedys.
Yeah, when I was touring with Jello Biafra, who had a band called Dead Kennedys.
I remember.
And we
that
were doing a spoken word tour, and so while we were on tour, I wrote Dead Kennedys. It's really about the assassination. Kennedy was
No.
but
Yeah.
they were assassinated, their brains blown out of their heads, you know.
It looks like one of the longest cuts on
Yeah.
the record. I like how you called side A this room and you called side B the other room.
Yeah, yeah.
It's-
Yeah, thankfully I have control over my own graphics, and that's really. And what's funny about this is there is a vacancy sign here, and it's in the vacancy between my name and the vacancy between my name and the title of it. And that title is just the cafe. That was the way it looked. That was the way it was photographed.
That's great.
That's not linear. That's linear, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, it's
Wow.
crazy.
So I would say like I was just trying to think on what we heard from off the record, that was pretty dark. And I mean, I was just wondering about the emotions of the poetry that you write. Do you think that they cover all kinds of emotions, or is it is it a little more dark and
I wouldn't say that I was self-consciously dark all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, how much of the emotional spectrum have I really covered? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd have to look at something. I said, well, that's sort of lavender, and that's sort of purple, and that's sort of navy blue.
yeah,
It'd be more like colors than emotions, really. So,
yeah.
I don't know. I hadn't thought about the emotional responsibility that I have to convey
Yeah.
the message that I'm doing. The message is certainly, McLuhan was right. The message is important, but I don't know how. Really, if there's any way I could define it emotionally, I just.
Yeah. Do you? I mean,
Gee, that's a sad poem. Gee, that's a happy
Yeah.
poem. I never thought about it.
Yeah. Do you? What was I going to ask you? Oh yeah, I talked about this the other day with somebody. Do you feel like you have a purpose besides obviously the creative flow? Do you have an extra purpose?
When I was up in the North Central Valley teaching teachers how to motivate kids, I thought, and I was inventing these language arts activities
Yeah.
to stimulate the creative process. I felt that when I went into the classroom and I saw these kids were responding to it, and the culmination of that is me showing up in a private school.
Yeah.
Where I have real responsibility.
Yeah.
I can't play games in there. I gotta really be as full of whatever integrity I have been able to assimilate, and then that's got to be the purpose.
Yeah.
The purpose of information and education, probably.
With integrity.
Yeah. And with tender subjects in to be responsible for, then that's what I have to do.
Yeah.
Then I think that there's a kind of a purpose there. There's a kind of a drive to help people improve their vocabulary skills, enhance their creative imaginations. I think that's part of it.
Let me ask you a further question in there. What do you think the purpose is of creating art? What do you think? Is it a responsibility that we have, or is it or maybe it's a number of things? But is there is there a purpose to creating art in general?
I think the only purpose is the act of creation,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
Whether you want to impose a responsibility on that, that's up to you. Oh, I got to be responsible about this language I'm using here. I got to really be responsible. That's something you put on yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking a
I never
little.
think about responsibility.
I
on
was
that
thinking a
level.
little bit more about like the responsibility, of an artist, as in reflecting what's going on, humanity, or whatever's happening, so that people who observe, read, listen, can actually take it in and somehow get better by listening and assimilating it and having cognitions.
Wow. The cognitive aspect of it all, knowledge. Well, that's what I'm constantly. Somebody said, they've got their PhDs and they've completed their educations, and I said, I will never complete my education. I'm constantly learning something. I'm constantly open to information that's going to give me some extra ammunition to use.
Yeah.
And I think that the whole idea of completing your education, and it's even the sense of being in a sense, what I'm doing is bringing the idea, the actual concept
Yes.
of creativity.
Yes.
And I'm trying to I'm just constantly learning. I'm in a sort of instead of completing my education, I consider myself an apprentice.
Yeah.
I'm a work in progress.
Yeah.
I haven't completed anything yet.
Well, that actually makes me
That's
feel,
conceptual, though.
Yeah, it is conceptual, but that actually kind of stimulates my perspective, one of my perspectives anyway, of constantly looking or desiring.
Yeah, or
that
just in the
creativity,
act of creating
right?
a book, which
Yeah,
you're doing.
yeah, or of anything. I mean,
That's-
just looking anywhere and everywhere for creativity that I can take part in or learn.
Yeah, and that's
soak
another thing.
in.
I don't think I've found myself looking for something.
Yeah.
The search has not been one that I've orchestrated. It's always been just I'm out there, I'm
Laid out
exposed,
for
and
you,
I'm
yeah.
waiting for something to strike me. And
Yeah. That's interesting in
it's
itself.
almost like having a built-in radar,
Yeah. I like that. Yeah, that's
So
that subject, of course, gets talked about a lot. That
does it ever?
Yeah, because so many people talk. I think rather than for searching, I think they talk against searching.
Oh yeah,
You
really?
know, well,
Really? You've
they
heard that?
talk more for what you just said.
Yeah.
You're being out there and you're hit with, and you have
Right.
to be there and be aware,
It's
right?
just remaining open
Yeah.
to whatever deliverance of beauty and truth it's going to come my way.
Yeah. I think this is part of why I like to go out a lot and hear music, because that's the thing that I get. I'm out there,
Yeah.
I'm listening, I'm observing, and I'm
Well, you're here as a singer, as a musical artist, but as also as an educator.
yeah.
Now I feel, yeah, I'm there. I'm where I am now, and I'm educating. But here's what I realize more than anything else: I'm also in these classrooms being educated.
Yeah.
I'm learning about people, especially writers in the bud. People are coming up. Oh God, I've got some genius mentality working with them. I said, God, how could I be gifted with students like this
Yeah.
in a prep school? By the time they get out of college, who knows? They may be totally jaded.
Yeah. Or they may have just dropped the bug for writing.
Or maybe if they hold on to anything, I hope it's the intensity
Yeah.
of learning. Yeah, if anything, if there's anything to learn, it's
Yeah.
that keep maintain that intensity and keep learning.
Yeah. Do you go out and hear music these days?
Where? I was
There's
going to ask you,
places.
where are you playing live dates anywhere?
I'm playing at the conference room in Playa Vista.
Well,
least
what's it like?
nowadays,
What,
once
in
a
this
month.
day and age,
It's
what's that like?
outdoors. It's
Oh, it's
outdoors,
outdoor,
and I
yeah.
have a trio, and I do a set, and then I have a jam.
Yeah, well, see, that's good. I haven't been anywhere.
But this week I'm going to the Ford Theater to see Billy Child's small orchestra with Diane Reeves and Moira Smiley.
Oh, really?
And then Friday, I'm going to Vitello's to see somebody I'm actually interviewing tonight like this, except it's an extra interview from 5 to 7.
And people can tune in.
Yeah, her
Oh.
name is Dara Tucker, and her musician wrote to me and introduced me to her, and I went and listened to her, and I was like, wow.
What club did you hear?
Well, she's in Chicago, so I went
okay.
online.
Oh, you heard it online.
Yeah, and I
See,
was
that's-
totally impressed with
Well,
her
what an
singing.
advantage that is.
Yeah, but she's at Vitello's on Fridays. She's from Chicago.
Right. Where is she?
She's from Chicago. Oh,
I
she's
mean-
at Vitello's Friday. Feinstein's, Vitello's.
There used to be a club called Catello's out in
No,
the valley.
this is Vitello's.
Oh, Vitello's. That's that Herb Alpert thing.
No, that's Vibrato.
Oh, okay.
And they're open too. But
It's
Vitello's
been a
is,
while since I've been out in public.
Vitello's is the place where Bobby, what's his name, didn't kill his wife.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
That's in Studio City.
Yeah.
So they have music. Then Sam First, which is walking distance from LAX. I go there a lot. It's like the Blue Whale, but it's
Yeah.
much smaller. Sam First,
Right.
walking distance from the LAX.
And it's and it's a comfort zone for you there.
They have great music.
Okay.
I mean, I saw Larry Kuntz there last week, and
God.
yeah, there's a lot of great people. The next 2 weeks I'm going to see a lot of people. Actually, Saturday night I'm going there to see Admara Ruiz, Bob Shepard, Larry Kuntz, and Luca Alamano, who I don't know, but he's probably a bass player, I'm thinking. And then Sunday I'm going to the Baked Potato.
Cathy, you're so peripatetic. You're out there.
But I'm having
Everybody
so
else
much
is walking
fun.
through a poisoned world, and
I
you're out
know.
there.
I know.
Oh God.
I know.
Yeah,
I just refuse. I kind of refuse to be,
Yeah, I know.
locked up and
Well, you should be.
stopped,
you
you
should
know.
be. I know. I just don't have the, the kind of.
You should come to Sam First on Saturday.
Where's that?
That's the place near LAX. You really should come there because
Well, I'll get the
The
I'll
music
get the
is
geography
fabulous.
from you. I'll get the
yeah,
directions.
it's really good. You would like it.
Saturday, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's this girl singer is going to be.
No, that's Admara Ruiz on piano and Bob Shepard on tenor
Oh, Bob Shepard.
and Larry
Oh,
Kuntz on
wow.
guitar.
Well,
I think you'd enjoy it. First of all, you'd enjoy the music. It's
Yeah.
great. But also the environment is really nice. It's a small club, and it the design is probably right up your alley too. It's like 60s,
oh yeah.
but new, but 60s.
Remember Zardy's? You'd go into Zardy's and it would be like Polynesian.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
Because the Zebra Lounge, everything was black and white. Those clubs, they had personality. Those
Yeah,
clubs.
yeah. I think Sam First has that kind of personality.
Yeah, maybe so.
Because it really looks like you stepped back
Yeah,
into the
maybe,
60s,
yeah, Yeah, maybe so.
It's
yeah.
really interesting.
Yeah.
But I can't help but go out because there's right now it's like an explosion of music
Oh
out
yeah,
there.
oh yeah, yeah.
And I go online a lot.
Well, people are beginning to come back to life,
Yeah. Do you look at YouTube at all?
Yeah, that's a pretty amazing. I mean, you can go back in time.
I know.
I showed my students Anna Mae Winborn and the International Sweethearts of Rhythm, 1943. I couldn't believe what that music was. That happened. That was happening then. Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. So you can go back and use it. I use YouTube as a teaching tool.
Yeah. I actually want to check this out for you too. Karen, who spoke of Benjamin Moore and Philip I wanted to show you this because she said you would really love this. Oh wow, they're on Origin Records. So am I, Karen. So here's a sound clip.
Making light of it.
Oops, sorry.
The poetry of jazz.
Making light of it. I call out a secret name, the name of the angel who guards my sleep. And light grows in the east, a new light like no other, as soft as the petals of the blown rose of late summer. Yes, it is late summer in the west. Even the grasses climbing the Sierras reach for the next outcropping of rock with tough, burned fingers. The thistle sheds its royal robes.
It's not poetry.
In the home of the great poet. I use music. And I fell in love with this. Making light of it.
Going an interesting preparation.
Yeah. So this must be.
Pleasure of visiting one of my friends and one of my favorite poets, Pulitzer Prize winner, Philip Levine.
Brooklyn Heights. This neighborhood has been the home of great poetry. Walt Whitman, Hart Crane, W.H. Auden. And I can write here. I actually like to work in small rooms. The room here is a small room. It's just something very cozy about it that I like. I learned years ago when my kids were young that I couldn't silence them. That was impossible, right?
Old ink.
But I could make noise that would overwhelm them. And I used music. And I fell in love with this album, Going Home, probably 20 years ago. I played it so long that in a sense, I don't hear it. What I hear is the silence that it leaves me. Should we go out and we'll talk? I'd like to show you some of the things that I go to when I feel I want to connect with the poetry, what I call poetry eternal. Up here is where Walt used to edit his paper. Now, do you think all those people over there are waiting to meet Walt Whitman? No way. Here it is. He gave America and poetry itself a new voice. It's true. Absolutely true. Great poet. Greatest poet who ever lived in this continent. But
Walt Whitman lived
actually, that crowd of people are waiting to get pizza.
He did.
At Grimaldi's Pizzeria.
Brooklyn, apparently.
Highly overrated, I might add, but don't sue me. Now we're coming to the Fulton Landing. You know, if you can't get inspiration from this, you can't get inspiration from anything. And here you have, inscribed in the metal, the words of Walt Whitman from his great poem, Crossing Brooklyn Ferry. Countless crowds of passengers. Oh, man. You know, I first came to New York from Detroit when I was 18 years old. And I said, I want to live here. God, it took me years and years and years. I was 50 before I managed to live here.
What year is this film?
But I did it.
Thank you for watching the Cortland Review. To watch more videos or to hear more poets read aloud, visit us at
Wow.
Yep.
One of my closest poet friends, Doran Robbins, studied with Philip Levine.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
huh. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Karen says it would be cool to make a film like this with Michael and replace or represent the LA scene.
Yeah, we could walk around Modesto and Stockton
or LA.
and LA, or what's left of LA.
That would be cool. Have you
New
ever
York.
done that? Made a film like in LA?
I wrote about it. I wrote in my memoirs. I've written my memoirs. I'm titling it "My Birthstone is a Cinder Block," and it's got all my. It's not. It really is not a chronological autobiography. It's very unchronological, scattered memories, you know.
Yeah.
And one of them is growing up in Pasadena and seeing LA and riding the streetcar at the age of 9. As I mentioned when we were talking to Mike Campbell about going down to Figueroa and 42nd Avalon and, you know, all of that. It's gone. It's all gone. So there'd be nothing to talk about it, so I could write about it at least and say this is what happened.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been doing.
Well, Michael C. Ford, thank you for, first of all, driving over here. I'm so glad we did this.
What kind of
person.
time have we got left?
Well, it's 2 hours.
We're right on target.
Yeah.
We have to bail, otherwise the NPR
unless you want to
news will
say
come
anything.
in and.
Unless you want to say anything.
Well, I thought maybe I did a closing poem, and I wanted to write something that had to do with closing down the record album. So if you want me to share this with you,
I would like to. Now,
okay.
Hold on. So we're going to close with that because that's a really beautiful closing. And I just want to tell you guys that tonight or this afternoon, 5 o'clock to 7, I'm doing an extra special hang with Dara Tucker, who's a wonderful singer. I'm a new fan of hers, really, and I don't say that a lot, actually.
No, you don't.
So I am a new fan of hers, and we're going to do hang 5 to 7, and then Friday, if you live in LA, come out. I'll be there. Dan Davila and I will be there to see Dara Tucker at Feinstein/Vitello's. And other than that, Thursday.
When is that going to be?
Friday.
This coming up Friday?
This Friday. And then Thursday through Sunday, I post from the archives.
Oh, you do?
So, because I've done over 300 of these.
Is that all?
So tomorrow, actually, you would love this guy. I have to introduce you to this guy. You know, who he is. Scott Robinson. He's a multi-woodwindist. And when I say multi, he's like plays every woodwind instrument ever.
Bass clarinet,
but
basset horn.
Stuff we don't even know about. And he has actually like a studio on the East Coast, and he's created this thing called Science Sonic, which is like a laboratory.
Has it got 14 chords in it? A sonnet. Wow.
But you can be a member and you can watch him experiment with different things. It's really fascinating. So he's on Thursday. Friday is the jazz harpist, Carol Robbins.
Okay.
And Saturday, a wonderful English singer named Georgia Mancio, who wrote the most beautiful lyrics to Alan Broadbent's songs, and they recorded together.
You mean his
really
instrumental pieces?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
really?
She's really good. And then Sunday, an LA girl, Carol Baki Rita, who's a great singer and dancer and in love with Brazilian Brazilian music. So that's who's, and you can always go on my website and see who's coming. There are a lot of great people coming.
Wow.
But so Michael C. Ford, we're gonna hear Michael C.
Well,
Ford
just
close out.
it's from this will be a live reading from my record. Look each other in the ears. As the hearse waits at the gates of the Gothic church, just before we give ourselves up to the journey, rain rolls out of the mural windows of our stained glass visions and waterfalls down our faces. After what we've just been through, will we ever be able to look each other in the ears again? And that's where that variation of look each other in the eyes comes from. Basically.
Thank you. That's great.
And we didn't run out of time. We're not out of time, really. We're just
Well, we are.
We're
Yeah,
out of time.
It's 2:00.
But I mean, no
sorry.
NPR voice is going to come
No,
in and say,
nobody-
"And now the news," that kind of thing.
No,
Okay.
I don't do that kind of thing.
Okay.
It's casual.
Oh, all right.
I mean, if you had something else you're dying to say, you can.
I'd like to do the news for you, quite frankly.
Quite frankly, Scarlett. So is there anything that people should be looking out for right now for you? Like, are you going to perform anywhere or?
When my new book comes out
Yeah.
from it's called the Mystic Boxing Commission is the name of the press.
Wow.
And they do, but this guy does it. Daniel J. Yarian does it. Produces books.
Yeah.
He produces poetry programs. He
Oh.
produces audio concerts. He does everything.
Ah,
And he's bringing out my new book.
Oh,
and,
cool.
There'll be a launch party for that, probably at the Airport Museum in the Valley.
oh,
Or somewhere. Maybe a theater in NoHo. I don't know.
yeah,
Wherever they let him do it.
yeah.
Whatever the governor of California allows him to.
Is there,
Wherever he wants, wherever that.
is there kind of a general date that's happening?
Sometime in November
Oh, cool.
or December,
I want to know about
maybe
it.
January. You know, it's really like public radio. You know, it's good afternoon, good morning, and good evening. Because you never know when it's going to go on. So that my publishing date is kind of on that level.
How do we find out? Is there a list an email list or
Yeah,
something?
go to the Mystic Boxing Commission website. That'll do it.
Mystic Boxing
Yeah, it's just how it's spelled. Mystic
Commission.
Boxing Commission.
website. Okay.
Okay. I love the fact that I'm being published by something called Mystic Boxing Commission. You gotta love it, you know?
You gotta love it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you,
It's
Cathy.
so much fun.
Wow, yeah.
It's great to have you here.
Later on, everybody.
Goodbye, ladies and gentlemen. I hope I see you at 5:00. Bye.